But it's also true that much of history is indisputably factual, because we have artifacts and coins and birth records and archaeology, and somebody in Mesopotamia kept a record of how much grain they ate. It's not all up in the air to change or delete or make up based on what makes you feel better today. Portland Public Schools has a plan now to teach kids that the idea of gender being mainly binary was brought here by white colonizers. The curriculum guide says, when the United States was colonized by white settlers, their views around gender were forced upon the people already living here. Not even Star Trek would try that.
So, the woke mob has now set their sights on history itself, twisting the past and dragging our heroes through the mud. These antics may look harmless, but they strike deep, chipping away at the very backbone of our nation. And that's exactly why Maher has had enough. The comedian unleashed on the woke crowd, shredding their nonsense with brutal precision, and it was glorious. So, buckle up, smash that subscribe button, and let's dive right in.
You can get creative with a novel, a TV show, or a movie, but history books, that's not supposed to be fan fiction. How we teach our kids history has become a big controversy these days, with liberals accusing conservatives of wanting to whitewash the past, and sometimes that's true. Sometimes they do. But plenty of liberals also want to abuse history to control the present. And last month, a scholar named James Sweet caught hell for calling them out for doing just that. He criticized a phenomenon known as presentism, which means judging everyone in the past by the standards of the present. It's the belief that people who lived 100 or 500 or 1,000 years ago really should have known better.
Believe it or not, that's the latest obsession of the woke left. After wrecking the present with their unhinged experiments, they've now turned their sights on the past, desperate to rewrite it so it conveniently props up their anti-common sense agenda. They've tried forcing their narratives into schools, workplaces, and even sports. And guess what? People are waking up. Their arguments are collapsing under the weight of reality. And the momentum they once bragged about is slipping away fast. So now, instead of facing the truth, they're digging into history, cherry-picking, distorting, and butchering facts just to manufacture a sense of moral high ground. It's a last-ditch effort to stay relevant, but the irony is glaring. No amount of rewriting the past can save an ideology that's failing in the present. And that's why more and more people are finally calling their bluff and pushing back hard.
Which is so stupid. It's like getting mad at yourself for not knowing what you know now when you were 10. Stupid me, spending all that time raising sea monkeys and playing with slot cards and jerking off to a Playboy in the barn. Who doesn't have moments from your past that make you cringe? Who hasn't said, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I wore that. I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe I did that. You ate dirt. You wanted to be a Ghostbuster. You shoplifted gum. You tried to be a white breakdancer.
I know a very special group of people who claim they've never regretted their past because, well, they've always been morally flawless. The left. The self-proclaimed guardians of virtue, the saints of Twitter, the professors of what's good and just. According to them, they've never made a mistake, never uttered a wrong word, never taken a wrong step. Absolute perfection wrapped in protest signs and hashtags. And because they've achieved this divine status, naturally, they've crowned themselves the arbiters of morality, not just for today, but for yesterday, last century, and every dead historical figure who didn't measure up to their ever-changing rule book. Forget context, nuance, or the fact that the world was different back then. No, the left is here to stand in judgment, rewriting history with the smugness only people who believe they're incapable of error could possibly muster.
That's because we hadn't then grown into the persons we would become, and humanity writ large is just the collective version of that. Did Columbus commit atrocities? Of course. But people back then were generally atrocious. Everybody who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Romans, the Arabs, British, the early Americans, all the way up through R. Kelly.
Bashing America for having slaves has become the woke crowd's favorite pastime. Scroll through Twitter or X and you'll see the same recycled outrage. America was evil. America was built on slavery. America this. America that. It's the same script over and over again, as if repeating it enough times makes them sound profound. But here's the irony. So thick you could cut it with a knife. These very same people dripping with moral superiority will turn around and cheer for groups far more radical and violent like Hamas. Yes, the same Hamas that openly calls for bloodshed, terror, and destruction somehow gets a free pass from the woke morality police. So, let me get this straight. America's past sins make it irredeemable forever. But extremists in the present deserve sympathy. That's not morality. That's hypocrisy dressed up in hashtags and fake outrage.
Who do you think gathered the slaves from the interior of Africa to sell to slave traders? Africans, who also kept their own slaves. We're a species prone to making others of our species our bitch. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Humans are not good people. And the capacity for cruelty is a human thing, not a white thing. That's the truth, even though it doesn't jibe with the current narrative.
And that's absolutely true. At our very core, human beings have the capacity to cause harm if the opportunity presents itself. Strip away the polished manners and the politically correct masks and you'll find the same raw impulse to dominate, to manipulate, to wound lurking beneath. Even the so-called good deeds we parade around aren't as pure as we like to think. Most of the time they're dripping with hidden motives. A desire for praise, the glow of self-righteousness, or the thrill of validation. Acts of charity get broadcasted, good intentions are turned into hashtags, and virtue is flaunted like a trophy. No one, and I mean no one, truly does good in its untainted form. Not me, not you, and certainly not the woke left with their constant sermons of moral superiority. Their brand of goodness is often the loudest performance of all and the fakest.
In today's world, when truth conflicts with narrative, it's the truth that has to apologize. Being woke is like a magic moral time machine where you judge everybody against what you imagine you would have done in 1066, and you always win. Presentism. Yeah, this professor is right. It's just a way to congratulate yourself about being better than George Washington because you have a gay friend and he didn't. But if he was alive today, he would too. And if you weren't alive, if you were alive then, you wouldn't.
Ma absolutely nails it here. The people who love to indulge in moral grandstanding are the same ones practicing a kind of historical presenteeism. They sit comfortably in their air-conditioned homes, scrolling on Wi-Fi, asking ChatGPT to confirm their brilliance, and then proceed to pass judgment on people who lived hundreds of years ago in an entirely different world. They measure yesterday's struggles against today's luxuries, pretending as if context doesn't matter. But here's the kick. They don't even realize that morality itself isn't universal. What's acceptable in one society today might be condemned in another. Even within the same country, standards clash. Yet these self-appointed moral police want to act like today's values are the eternal benchmark for all of history. It's arrogance disguised as virtue. And Ma is right to torch it because once you erase context, you erase truth.
In public schools has a plan now to teach kids that the idea of gender being mainly binary was brought here by white colonizers. The curriculum guide says, when the United States was colonized by white settlers, their views around gender were forced upon the people already living here. Not even Star Trek would try that story. Where they discover a planet and give them separate bathrooms. It's like they finally discovered a unified theory of wokeness, incorporating all their ideas about race, gay, gender, and colonizers, like the New World was a great big diverse dance club and the Pilgrims were the bridge and tunnel crowd who came in and ruined everything.
The woke crowd isn't satisfied with wrecking the present. They've got their sights set on the future too. And how do they plan to do it? By indoctrinating kids. Imagine walking into a classroom where children are told that gender is just a feeling, that it's fluid and that at any moment they can choose to be a boy, a girl, or something in between. This isn't just harmless theory floating around in textbooks. It's being pushed onto kids as fact. In some cases, children are even encouraged to transition without their parents' knowledge or consent. Let that sink in. The number of young people swept up in this ideological wave is staggering. Yet, the left doesn't blink an eye. They champion it, celebrate it, and call it progress. But what it really is reckless social experimentation. And the ones paying the price are children.
There's a play called I, Joan, currently being presented in London, written by Charlie Josephine, who identifies as non-binary and uses they-them pronouns. And it portrays Joan of Arc as, surprise, non-binary with they-them pronouns. Which, if you think about it, makes even less sense because Joan, being French, spoke a language where every noun is masculine or feminine. Joan says in the play, I'm not a girl. I don't fit that word, as if she's a character on Euphoria.
So, the woke crowd isn't satisfied with tearing apart America's history. They've now stretched their tentacles across the Atlantic trying to drag Europe into the same cultural circus. The problem for them, though, is that Europe isn't some blank canvas waiting for woke paint. It's as diverse and layered as a forest filled with 1,000 different trees, each rooted in its own culture, traditions, and identity. Forcing America's brand of woke ideology onto Europe is like trying to make an oak tree behave like a pine. It simply won't work. Nations there carry centuries of history, religion, and philosophy that don't bend easily to Twitter hashtags or TikTok activism. Yet, the woke brigade marches in with arrogance, assuming their progressive gospel is universal truth. What they'll find instead is resistance because Europe, for all its flaws, isn't as quick to trade its heritage for hollow virtue signals. Now, it's true Joan of Arc did wear pants, but that's what the soldiers wore when she was soldiering. But in the retelling, Joan would rather die than stop wearing men's clothing. Okay, Joan of Arc wasn't executed by the fashion police. Her trial went on for over 2 months. We have the transcript. And not once did she complain about being misgendered. She had bigger fish to fry like herself. Joan of Arc's story is anything but woke. It's the tale of a girl who simply couldn't tolerate foreign invaders trampling her homeland. At just 17, she didn't sit around writing manifestos about identity or demanding special treatment. She put on armor, rallied soldiers, and took the fight straight to the English, determined to drive them out of France. Her mission wasn't about gender politics or fantasy narratives. It was about grit, conviction, and the raw fight for independence. Joan didn't see herself as a victim. She saw herself as a warrior with a purpose. She embraced her so-called weaknesses, her youth, her inexperience, even her position as a peasant girl and turned them into fuel for her courage. That's why her story still inspires centuries later. It's about action, faith, and sacrifice, not performative activism. Joan's legacy wasn't built on slogans. It was forged on the battlefield.
Now, it's true, Joan of Arc did wear pants, but that's what the soldiers wore and she was soldiering. But in the retelling, Joan would rather die than stop wearing men's clothing. Okay, Joan of Arc wasn't executed by the fashion police. Her trial went on for over 2 months. We have the transcript. And not once did she complain about being misgendered. She had bigger fish to fry, like herself.
No matter how hard woke culture tries to rewrite history, it will always fail. Because history isn't some fantasy novel you can edit to fit an agenda. It's built on real people who lived real lives, who struggled, sacrificed, and made the most of the world they were handed. Were they perfect? Of course not. But perfection wasn't the requirement. It was survival, innovation, and laying the foundation for the freedoms and comforts we enjoy today. To sit in 2025 with air conditioning, Wi-Fi, and endless information at our fingertips and sneer at people who lived centuries ago is not moral superiority. It's arrogance. If those historical figures had the knowledge, science, and opportunities we have now, many of them would have done far better. Instead of erasing or condemning them for their flaws, we should acknowledge their humanity and respect the legacy that built the very ground we stand on. At the end of the day, history can't be rewritten to satisfy woke fantasies. It's not about flawless saints, but real people who built the world we inherited. We honor them not by erasing their mistakes, but by learning from them and protecting truth from ideological revisionism. And this brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next.